you started employment is the day your life was no longer almost in your control. If I always wish if I could go back to my days as a student, those were actually the best days of my life. I didn't have a boss to tell me much about how I should handle things. I didn't have anyone that told me I need to report at 8 o'clock and only leave at 4:30. But now, once you join this train, it is a train until you walk into the grave. And this train of working life can stretch all the way up to 40 years. And long ago, some of us were that loyal to stick to one employer throughout that journey. But it is quite a long journey. After retirement, it actually can be another very long journey of up to 30 years. Gone are those days when people say, or something, that's actually quite a long journey. You could have a life as long as 30 years post-retirement. And you need to figure out how you survive over that very long period. And here I'm just going to show you some of the expenses that you experience in each part of this life. One, children is one of the biggest expenses that anyone goes through. In America, they worked out that from the day mom and dad had fun to the day mom and dad are celebrating you graduating. So from -9 months old to the graduation day, that cost could be up to $1 million for a single child in a developed economy. It is actually a big expense. And of course, we need bread, we need transport, we need a house, and of course, we need other things like medical care. So the costs in your working life can vary throughout this whole spectrum. After retirement, some of these costs are still there. Maybe no more children, unless you kept on being naughty up here. Someone told me, at least ladies reach menopause. Men can only stop having children when their neck doesn't turn anymore to look at them. Otherwise, we continue looking. Bread costs maybe come down. Transport costs maybe come down. Housing costs, maybe you can cut half of your house and put a few tenants around. The costs are down. Medical costs, they tend to like to go up quite a lot when you reach that kind of an age. Overall, without talking any specific currency, I had to figure out a number to use. If it relates to you and some kind of your salary, that's okay, that's fair enough. You need about $3,000. Maybe that's what you earn when you are in that spectrum. Hopefully. Talking about a guy that needs $3,000 to cover all those costs. This guy who needs about $2,000 in that other new life. This is what the replacement ratio that the regulator was talking about. That you want to replace the 3,000, we call that a 66% replacement ratio to 2,000. That's what you need post-retirement. And whenever we talk about pensions and the like, we are trying to figure out how do you prepare for this 2,000 when there's no longer an employer that runs you on a monthly payroll. And that's what pensions is all about. And let's carry on with the story. There are many ways of preparing for your retirement. Others are lucky, they can get inheritance from somebody. But these things can change. Hopefully you're not chatunga because you might be running with your inheritance at some point. Others have got income generating projects. Let me tell you something. The regulator talked about every one of us thinking that we are better than average as an investor. How many of us in here think are better than average drivers? You know what happens? 90% of people think they are better than average drivers. The theory is wrong right from the beginning. The reality can only be half of you are better than average. Every one of us think they can do it themselves. If I took 100 people today and gave them all their pension and say, go and start an income generating project. I can tell you when I come and look 10 years later, statistics tells me that only 2 or 3 of you out of the 100 who actually have an income generating business. The rest of you, it'll be gone. This is the reason why 99% of us work for the 1% that has managed to actually start businesses. That's why 99% of us will need a pension from the 1% that have actually managed to run businesses. So we fool ourselves, a lot of us think. I will do something, I'll have my cows at the yield, I'll start my shop, I'll start my this and that. A lot of us think we will actually produce something. Or rental income. That's what people run to most of the time. Subdivide your house. And when I hear the president speaking that by 2030, believe it or not, but I hear him say by 2030, I want a house for every household and for every family in this country. So who are you going to rent it to? If we all think that I'm just going to buy houses and let them out, you're assuming there are other people that are not building homes. When I look through Harare, it keeps expanding into areas that I don't even know. So at some point, somebody's going to have their own house. One day your tenant will say goodbye. And finally, savings and investments. And this is really what we do as a pension provider. This is what I want to talk about today. And which, whether I want to believe it or not, 99% of us in here are going to need it. And let's come back to that person we talked about. We say they will need $2,000 from their current income today of $3,000 in order to survive in their retirement. Long ago, we used to do it through what Mr. Kakwere talked about, what we call the defined benefit scheme. I'm not going to dwell too much into this, but a defined benefit simply says when you work, the employer promised you a percentage of your salary in retirement for each year of service that you've worked for them. Defined contribution, the employer is saying, I'm only paying so much contributions of your salary into the pot. One day, you sort out yourself out with the pot. So long ago, in a defined benefit, you needed to work for 40 years to get the replacement ratio of 66% that we're talking about. So 40 years with the employer. At the time you go, the employer say, I'll give you 2/3 of your salary in all your life until you retire. In the DC side, all your contributions should accumulate to $400,000 for you to be able to get $2,000 a month. The problem we have with our pensioners is, now, when I write your end year statement to you saying you got $400,000, you get too excited. You start to think about the many things you can do with it, how many cows you can buy and put kumusha, and all those things you start to think about. You don't think so much about the income that you need every month of $2,000 until you're dead. But what is important to realize is, in defined benefit, you needed to save for 40 years. In defined contribution, you need a pot of $400,000 in order to achieve the same objective. And let's carry on. Now we need to figure out, today's world is pretty much defined contribution. Pre-2000, the world was pretty much defined benefit. Now that we're in a world defined contribution, we're going to figure out how are we going to raise $400,000 by the time I reach retirement age, so that I can get the $2,000 a month that we need. Now and this $400,000 is based on the thinking that you will retire at the normal retirement age, which is your 60s. That's fine. But some of you might choose to say, a lot of you choose to say, I want to go early. I'm tired. I want to go in my 50s. I want you to know that when you choose to go in your 50s, you don't need 400,000. You need 500,000. Because we're going to have to pay you for an extra decade in your retirement. So that's what we call early retirement. There's also the other side. Some will choose to say, I want to work longer and retire in my 70s. So we call that late retirement. And we only need to raise 300,000 because we're going to pay you a decade shorter in your retirement. So think of this clearly. It ranges between whether you want to go early and whether you want to go late. But the pot is yours, and that's what determines how much you get going forward. Now let's carry on. How do you raise this amount that you need, 400,000? Anyone in their 20s in here? There are no babies? Oh, there's the lady there for my pick. Yeah. So if she wants to raise 400,000 by the time she retires in her 60s, she needs to put $400 a month today. But that's not the message I actually want to give. Well, in their 30s. I think there's more of you. So if she doesn't want to do it while she's in her 20s, and she wants to contribute when she's in her 30s and start the journey, she's going to need 800 a month. So hard luck for all of you in your 30s. If you had started when you're in your 20s, right now you'll be carrying on at 400. But because you stopped the game, you started the game a bit late, you're going to need to contribute a double here rate. Who are in their 40s? The ladies won't say now. So if you're in your 40s, you're going to have to contribute at $1,600 a month. 4 times that little baby at the back there. So that you raise that 400,000.
But we don't earn that.
Exactly. That's the point. And if you're in your 50s, I won't ask who you are. You're going to need to contribute 66,000 a month. And you're earning 3,000 a month, by the way. So that you have a pot that's enough to give you 2,000 a month. What am I trying to say in this whole story? Baby, can you hear me? It's better to start now. They always say the best time to have started a mango tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now as you walk out of this room. Go and plant your mango tree. Because for each day you wait to plant that mango tree, she needs $1. You need 16 times more if you're in your 50s. To be able to raise the same pension when you're in retirement. But a lot of you don't want pension. I know you have all excuses about the hyperinflation that happened. Do you know the most people that complain about Zimbabwe's economy, you know where they are? They're in diaspora. The diasporans complain about every little thing that happens in Zimbabwe. Why? They want to justify their reason for not being in the country. And the most people that complain about pensions are those that actually don't have a pension. Those are the noisiest ones about pension. They actually don't have it. They want to justify their reason for not having it. And this is scary, ladies and gentlemen. I'll carry on with my slides. There are 2 types of how pensions are provided in life. And this, I'm talking about the developed world, in other countries. There is what we call the basic state pension, then there's what we call the occupational pension. The basic state pension is what is normally funded by the government to a large extent. It's what every pensioner is expected to have as a minimum in a nation. And typically, you will find that this is a pay-as-you-go system where us who are working are funding for those that are in retirement. Our time shall come when we are in retirement that the ones who are working are funding for us more. And in Zimbabwe, NASA is close to that, is what is supposed to be providing a basic state pension for every citizen in the country. Then comes the other side. You only get what you sow. You can't go and harvest someone else's labor. And in the occupational pension scheme, the pot gotta be what you do yourself. And this is the whole world if you go in other countries. You read a lot in the UK about BSP, you read a lot in America about how the state pension works. And I was having engagements here with the regulator to a large extent before we started about defining a certain minimum pension that every citizen must have when they become a pensioner. That is almost trying to define a basic state pension. That whether you're a CEO or whether you're somebody little, ideally, like the NASA, for example, should be paying us the same pension. It doesn't distinguish between I was the chief executive or so and so. That is defined, the difference is seen in the occupational pension scheme. But basic state is supposed to equalize us. Then we move on. Back to my 400,000. When you have got your 400,000, now retirement is arrived. There are two options that you can follow with your 400,000. The first one, we call it income drawdown. And this is what we're offering mostly at Old Mutual. Your pot is set aside. Every month we run a payroll, we give you 2,000. Next month comes, we run a payroll, we give you 2,000. While the 400,000 is in various asset classes and invested. This is on the hope that you're an average person. By around about 85, 90 years old, we bury you. That's the idea. So if you happen to reach 95, hard luck, the pot has gone to zero. You've run out. But the other nice thing, if you died only 5 years after retirement, this pot completely belongs to you. Old Mutual has got nothing to do with it. Your family will come and knock the door and say, we want the remainder of our pot. The challenge we have with some pensioners is they want to draw down more than 2,000. And by the time they are 70, they've run out. And we have a challenge. So it's an income drawdown one. It is up to you. We recommend what we think will take you around about 90 when we expect people to die. But sometimes you want to go too fast. Sometimes you know yourself better. So that's one option. The second option is what we call an insured annuity, where we sign a contract between you and us as Old Mutual. We say the number is 2,000 a month. We have taken a bet on your life. We have agreed $2,000. If you die 5 years later, we win as Old Mutual. If you get to 100 years, we lose as Old Mutual. So we use it based on an average person. And when we mean average, so we expect 50% of you to win, another 50% of you to lose. It's based on average. But you don't need to worry anymore. We've agreed that this is the number. There's nothing left when your family is gone, when you are gone. But we can add a side one on the side. And the one on the side that we can add is to say, of my 2,000, just remove a little bit so that we have an agreement that says, when I die, if my spouse is alive, you can pay her until she dies too, or pay him until he dies too. If I have children, you pay them until they've graduated out of university. But of course, when you're 85, don't marry a 25-year-old so that we carry on forever. So we put in those conditions so that we at least cover ourselves too. So I hope you understand. So when you reach retirement, you have two options. Draw down your own pot, you risk running out, but your family keeps the remainder of the pot. Or we have a guaranteed annuity. We have promised each other that you die early, Old Mutual wins, you die late, you win. But you need to get a rider if you want your family to be left with something. We move on to the next one. One of the challenges we have experienced is that 20-something-year-old we have there currently works at IPEC. Long ago, you would expect her to reach her 60s at IPEC and given a good farewell after 40 years. And I can tell Ms. McCaqueri that she's not going to be with you until 60 years. The kids of today will move on. And on average, some of them are moving on jobs, 6 jobs on average throughout their career. One of the days of some of us that are so loyal. The kids we have today are not that loyal. So at Old Mutual, we needed to start a fund, which we call the Preservation Fund. It says that when you skip between employers, your pot keeps being added together and accumulating. So that you don't have to restart. You look like you're in one employment, but you're in various employments. And that preservation fund is appreciating that you have several employers throughout your career. And with these several employers, I want to tell you that if you keep them together, accumulating them together, even if you have to work for 6 employers, by the time you reach 60, you will have your 66% replacement ratio. But see what happens most. The first 2 employers, you call them, how much my money, like Mr. Chigariro, looking for his red book. What is there? I just give it to me. I need it. It looks juicy. As I say to you again, when you look at these pots, they look juicy. And a lot of our clients want them back because they look attractive. And when they have them back, and only at 35, they start keeping, they've changed their replacement ratio to 40%. And again, if they let 2 more employers go without taking the money out, they have reduced their replacement ratio to 20. And what scares me most, which we see in most of the times, is people have got only pension from their last employer and a replacement ratio of 7%. And I can tell you, most of these are CEOs today. They have called us. I'm about to retire, how come my pension is only, how do you expect me to leave with less than 10% of my salary? Of course you spent the other 5 employers before then. Where are they? They are only focusing on their last employment. And now it is a replacement ratio of 7%. That's why they die early, as Mr. Chigariro said. They're not used to going to Kumusha. And they try to live now on 7%. And the company said you can retire with a Mercedes-Benz, which needs the 7% just for service. And life goes horribly wrong. So what am I saying here? I'm saying preserve from a young age. Don't enjoy taking the windfalls and going. As I say again, people will accuse me and say, those that took and ran won. And it's true, because when hyperinflation came in our country, those that took and ran did win, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean that when someone wins because something has gone wrong, it becomes the formula. How does that become the formula? So then you take yours today. When you go on your knees every day, pray for the country to go wrong again. Because that's the only way you'll be proven right. Otherwise, we're going to laugh at you and you're going to be proven wrong. If this economy, if you believe at all that it will be better, then you're going to be worse off. Let me carry on, but I'm getting closer to the end. Uncertainty always happens. Everything we've been talking about now is assuming that we'll all get to retirement. Unfortunately, I work for Old Mutual. We're not scared of talking about death. And I can tell you that we process a death. At least we don't go a day without paying a death claim. We don't. We pay deaths several every day. We see them happening. So we're not scared to talk about them. And I can tell you in this room, let me maybe think there are 35 of us in here. I can tell you without any doubt that 5 will not make it to retirement. Because we know.
Who was this?
If only we knew who were there, Old Mutual have no business. Because we don't. That's how we are in business. And I'm just going to talk one slide about insurance. Preparing for not knowing whether you are the one that will make it to retirement. There are 3 things you can do, which we offer. What we call this critical illness or disability benefit. This is when maybe you're diagnosed with cancer or some bad disease, or you have an accident, you've got a broken back or something, you can't do your job anymore. But someone was planning very well for the future, but now you can't do your job anymore. We have a benefit where you'll be paying a little bit every month, but it pays you that 400,000 that you needed for your retirement. Because something has happened to you early. And let me tell you about those little things. If critical illness or a bad disease doesn't happen to you, Old Mutual wins. Don't ask for your money back. Just join that company for 1 month. If something happens to you, they take your monthly salary times 12, that's the annual, times 3 years annual salary. It's a big amount. Tax-free for your family to look after yourself in the event that you've died. Of course, if you don't die, Old Mutual wins. We keep the money. That's our job. If you die, Old Mutual loses big time. So of the 35 of you in here, from the other 30, we'll make money. From the other 5, we'll lose big time. That's how insurance works. So if you want more, you can buy a policy. This is additional one. If your employer is not offering you this, you can buy some on the side, which is additional cover. And I will move away from my last couple of slides. I want to talk about, I've seen CEOs from various companies, which I shall not mention, some of them big and powerful, that walk into Old Mutual crying about their pension. And I wonder, Mr. CEO, your pension was only 5% of your contribution. And you had that big salary. Where did you put the other 95%, Mr. CEO? What happened to the other 95? And the bonuses? And the 5% is what you come in to make noise at Old Mutual. None of us in here is paying more than 20% of their salary, not even more than 10% of their salary towards pension. But we make so much noise about the pension. But the other 90% we've got it. Someone said, give me my money, I want to go and buy cows. Why are you not buying cows with the 90%? And those are some of the challenges that are us people. If you can't manage the 90%, please just allow us to manage this 5% for you, because you're going to need it. But if you say no, and some people close pension funds, we have some who are applying as the regulator, please close them. But then you also lose the employer contribution. Because it's not just yours. It's your employer obligation, which IPEC will say you must pay to the employer. IPEC will censor the employer that doesn't pay. So if you close the pension fund, you lose out from your employer contribution. Not just that, the 5% you have now has to be taxed, because you're not getting it as income. For me, as a 50% taxpayer, if it was meant to be $5 in my pension fund, it's now $2.50 in my pocket. Do I really believe with $2.50 in my pocket, I will do better than $5 put in my pension fund plus more from my employer? We fool ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. We need this. And just use the 95% better if you think you're that smart. And as we always say, insurance is for the poor. Every one of us, we have insurance because we are poor. Okay, if you go to Bill Gates, he doesn't need insurance. If he dies, he's got millions and millions. He's sorted. So we have insurance because just in case, those that are sorted don't need it. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying fight. If you don't fight for this, you're going to be sunk. Yes, we blame hyperinflation. I know it happened. And the second one came 10 years later. It came too fast to others. For me, I embrace it, that it came quicker. Do you know why? If I had my driving school lessons, one every month, I would have never learned. The closer I had them together, the more I mastered what we needed to do. So this lesson came when the other one is very fresh, and I can tell you, there's a lot of learning that's being done. I wouldn't have wanted it to come 50 years later in a different generation, then there's no more lessons. I actually prefer it now in the same generation, same leaders, so that we try and fix. We have understood these lessons much better. One of the mistakes we did, just to take 1 minute on the slide, is the pension fund industry concentrated on money market, equities, and property. Guess what? The stock exchange was all our big companies in Zimbabwe, our fantastic operating companies that we hear. And guess what? The property was all for those offices, for those big companies to rent. The same companies that were on the stock exchange. It's the same companies that the pension fund built buildings for them to rent. It's the same companies that dealt with the debt in the money market industry. Altogether, we had one basket. It might have looked like 3 baskets, but it was one basket. And when the economy collapsed, the whole institutional system collapsed. It went with the properties that became void, it went with the stock exchange that could not hold the companies going down, and it went with the debt that disappeared. The lesson was learned. And now as we speak today, we are thinking differently as an industry. And I've always said, this industry, I keep saying to Mr. Kakwere, we are being bullied. This Zimbabwe cannot survive without the pension industry. The stock exchange as you see it is the pension industry. Harare buildings as you see them, it's the pension industry. The money that the banks talk about is the pension industry. The pension industry is so powerful in any nation, not just in Zimbabwe, to the extent that it must control. And just trying to think, with 25% of its value, I wanted to give 3 examples of what this industry could do. It could build a dual carriageway of 1,000 kilometers in this country. And with the toll gates having gone from $2 to 10, and I can tell you if more zeros are added, they will go from $10 to 100. What if the pensioners owned those toll gates? What would have hyperinflation done to them? What would have, if your pension was linked to the toll gate, do you care about hyperinflation? Absolutely not. So we had a wrong focus, which was focus on institutional market, that collapsed. Now we must change our thinking. Imagine if 25% built 2 world-class hospitals. I'm not talking avenues here, I'm talking world-class hospitals. That's what 25% can do. I know avenues is nice, but I'm talking bigger. And now I hear they're rating when you walk in there. Imagine if your pension was rated to the hospital bill. Would you ever care about hyperinflation? Absolutely not. The pension fund industry must think differently. Imagine if we powered 25% of it could power 500,000 homes in this country with power. Now a lot of you, we've all been turned into witches, waking up at 2 a.m. to hide our white clothes. And imagine what would have happened if the pension fund industry powered our villages and our suburbs, and we charged that tariff for powering. Would we ever care about hyperinflation? Absolutely not. So my point is, the reason we suffered is we had an institutional focus. The focus of the pension fund industry must change to become one which actually hedges us going forward. And finally, I say, guys, we have 2 choices. To run away from this, but where we're going is poverty. I can tell you that without any doubt in my mind. It's poverty. If we fight, I can tell you again without any doubt in my mind that we will get this right and we will have a happy day. Yes, there's nothing which is not a gamble in life. And I want to leave a message with you today that plant your mango tree today because time works for you. The more time you have to prepare, the better you will be. Of course, things will happen. You might get choked. But I can tell you, that CEO is still walking into our offices because that's all they have left. So it's better to actually have something small than absolutely nothing. And that's the message I want to leave with you. And I hope I've given you a little bit of education into what we do every day. But I want to leave you with a message that says little is better than nothing.
Amen.
Presentation, great slide work, very savvy presenter. Thank you very much, Tassius. That was great. Right, and we're all feeling guilty that we haven't been paying attention to this very important matter. Some of us that are over 20, well over 20 in my case. So we've come to the question answer session. You've got 15 minutes maximum with Mr. Chigariro before he leaves us, which is unfortunate, but we are joined by, as he did point out, quite a robust panel that are going to stay behind. So if he needs to disappear in 15 minutes, then please do excuse him. But before that, rush those questions in, be quick in asking them. Don't forget to announce who you are. And
just join that company for 1 month. If something happens to you, they take your monthly salary times 12, that's the annual, times 3 years annual salary. It's a big amount. Tax-free for your family to look after yourself in the event that you die. Of course, if you don't die, Old Mutual wins. We keep the money. That's our job. If you die, Old Mutual loses big time. So of the 35 of you in here, from the other 30, we'll make money. From the other 5, we'll lose big time. That's how insurance works. So if you want more, you can buy a policy. This is additional one. If your employer is not offering you this, you can buy some on the side, which is additional cover. And I will move away from my last couple of slides. I want to talk about, I've seen CEOs from various companies, which I shall not mention, some of them big and powerful, that walk into Old Mutual crying about their pension. And I wonder, Mr. CEO, your pension was only 5% of your contribution. And you had that big salary. Where did you put the other 95%, Mr. CEO? What happened to the other 95? And the bonuses? And the 5% is what you come in to make noise at Old Mutual. None of us in here is paying more than 20% of their salary, not even more than 10% of their salary towards pension. But we make so much noise about the pension. But the other 90%, we've got it. Someone said, give me my money, I want to go and buy cows. Why are you not buying cows with the 90%? And those are some of the challenges that are us people. If you can't manage the 90%, please just allow us to manage this 5% for you, because you're going to need it. But if you say no, and some people close pension funds, we have some who are applying at the regulator, please close them. But then you also lose the employer contribution. Because it's not just yours. There's your employer obligation, which IPEC will say you must pay to the employer. IPEC will censor the employer that doesn't pay. So if you close the pension fund, you lose out from your employer contribution. Not just that, the 5% you have now has to be taxed, because you're not getting it as income. For me, as a 50% taxpayer, if it was meant to be $5 in my pension fund, it's now $2.50 in my pocket. Do I really believe with $2.50 in my pocket, I will do better than $5 put in my pension fund plus more from my employer? We fool ourselves, ladies and gentlemen.